So John Lennon, that was a messianic vision that he had. And many of the ideas, of course, exist. This messianic idea of the world living in peace, the acknowledgement of one morality and one ethic is a very Judeo-Christian idea. In fact, in the Oleinu, which you cite 3 times a day, right? On that day, the Lord will be one and his name one. Meaning there'll be no more divisions amongst people. Doesn't mean everybody's going to be the same religion. It means that those religions will not create conflict, but rather unify everyone around the idea of one creator who created us in his image, and therefore all are equal and all should seek peace with each other. So it's a messianic vision, which unfortunately meets with the reality of the completely nonsensical, purposeless, violent death that he experienced. I mean, his death was the complete opposite of what his hopes were. But his song lived on. Therefore, his hopes live on. And the words are as strong today and as meaningful to us today as they were when John first wrote them and sang them for us. You know, we're in the middle of the festival of Sukkot, and it was the end of Sukkot, Simchat Torah, when the war began 2 years ago. I know we observed October 7th because that's what it's become known as, but in Jewish tradition we actually go to the anniversary on the Jewish calendar, which will be this coming Monday night and Tuesday. Because in Israel, Simchas Torah is the same day as Shmini Atzeret. So this Monday night and Tuesday will literally be the exact anniversary on the Jewish calendar of what we call October 7th. And could we have imagined it going on for 2 years? And could we have imagined that when it was all done, we knew it would be done and Israel would win, but I don't think anyone could have imagined, right, using John Lennon's words, a possibility of an end not just to the conflict between Hamas, Palestinians, and Israelis and Jews, but rather a real end to the conflict in the Middle East and a reconciliation that began with Abraham, actually began with Sadat and his courage of signing a peace treaty with Israel because he had a messianic vision, right? He wanted to finally see peace descend upon his country and upon that part of the world, and he paid for his dream with his life, with also violent death. But his dream never came crashing down. It crashed down on him in his moment, but it continues to this very day. So I think of the Sukkah, which of course is supposed to be a very precarious home that we sit in and eat and drink. And certainly this last week in Miami, it's been like you get in, finish Kiddush, and then you're out as soon as it starts raining. We never know what's going to happen with our plans with the Sukkah. But that's the meaning of the Sukkah, that life is very precarious. It's very hard to build something that is strong and permanent. We do our best to build it, to safekeep it, to protect it, but we have to remember we live in a Sukkah. On October 7th, we forgot that we lived in a Sukkah. That's what happened. We didn't remember that life is so precarious and the dangers are so great, and we were unprepared. 2 years later, we're no longer dwelling in that Sukkah. We're in a very, very strong and powerful position that has the possibility of leading to an incredible peace in the Middle East, with an absence of conflict and the beginning of incredible cooperation between Israel and her neighbors. Those who have begun that cooperation have already benefited tremendously from it, and it will begin to spread. So I think of Sadat, who understood Golda Meir's saying that peace will come when they love their children more than they hate Jews. right? And that's what happened with Sadat. He said it straight out. I don't want my grandchildren dying on the battlefield fighting Israelis. He loved his grandchildren more than he hated Jews. So he gave it up and signed the peace treaty, sacrificed his life so that his grandchildren would never have to do battle again in a hopeless cause of trying to bring Israel to an end. So he understood Golda Meir's wisdom. And we've already begun to see others who understand it as well and are seeking peace with Israel. Then, of course, we get to, I think it was Abba Eban, who said Palestinians never miss an opportunity to miss an opportunity. All right? Well, never say never. There's always the possibility that at some moment, like Sadat had his moment, that they will have their moment and they will stop missing opportunities to allow their children and grandchildren not to live in squalor and violence and fear, but rather to live in peace in a relationship with her neighbor Israel that will allow them to flourish and really enter into the 21st century and all the benefits that can come from peaceful coexistence with Israel. And then there's Yogi Berra. Not in the same category as Abba Eban or Golda Meir, but it was very wise when it says, it ain't over till it's over, right? And so we feel right now we're all in a sukkah, right? It's already Shabbat. It's already well into the morning of Saturday in Israel, and we're looking at a 72-hour window for the hostages to be released, which will be the end of the war. It'll be end of the war for a very simple reason. The only reason this war wasn't over 3 months after it started is because they had hostages. If they didn't have hostages, the war would have ended very, very quickly, because we've seen the might, the power, and the genius of the Israeli armed forces. But when there's hostages, you're limited in what you can do because of the collateral damage that you could cause. So although we're in a sukkah, everything's precarious, it ain't over till it's over, we're as close as we've ever been to bringing this war to a close. If they release the hostages, it means they've surrendered. Because without the hostages, they are the most helpless, hapless people on the face of the earth. Because if they don't surrender their weapons, if they don't bring the war to an end and give up governance, they will cease to exist. Because Israel will have no one to stop them from finishing the war. Israel has never been allowed to end a war, to finish it by victory and then reconstruction and then reconciliation, like we did after World War II. Israel's never been allowed to do that. That was a mistake that every president made, that Europe made, that Israel had no choice but to make because she was controlled by greater forces. And that's why there's been war after war after war after war. If Israel is able to end this war by winning it, and Gaza is reestablished as a non-terror country, living in peace and cooperation with Israel, then it will be over. If not, it will be over anyway because there won't be any Hamas left, and then Gaza will return to a new leadership with international supervision that will ensure the peace. So although it ain't over till it's over, it's as close as it's ever been. The Sukkah, as fragile as it might be, is standing very, very strong at this moment. Simchat Torah is when we end the reading of the 5 books of Moses, and what do? We go right back and begin it again. As this Simchat Torah approaches, as we sit in a sukkah that is so fragile, we have the best reason and opportunity to believe that when this Simchas Torah is done, and we finished that chapter of 2 years of war, suffering, but yet tremendous determination, accomplishment, and success, that we will go back to the very beginning of the story, back to the book of Genesis. We'll begin reading it again, but this time it will be different. It will be based upon a peace that will allow Israel to thrive and the entire region to thrive. And then it gets very close to what John Lennon imagined, because ultimately he was looking for one thing. He was looking to find how people could live together. He was looking for peace. All right, so he was trying to imagine everything that was preventing peace, and he was right. There were religions preventing peace, and there were countries preventing peace. It doesn't have to be that anymore. It can be imagined. We can imagine today what John Lennon imagined, and that is an Israel living at peace with her neighbors. It doesn't mean there'll never be any terror. It means that it'll be controlled, minimized, and marginalized by the world. And if we get that, then we will enter this new year, 5786, with the greatest opportunity Israel has had in her entire existence to bring an end to what is known as the Arab-Israeli conflict. And it can become the Arab-Israeli cooperation that will lead to a flourishing of the Mideast like it's never known its entire history. And that can bring peace to both the Palestinians and the Israelis, so they can both love their children and their grandchildren again and not put them on the battlefield to kill, maim, and destroy each other. May this sukkah, we say, Yakim Sukkot David Hanofelet. We pray when we say the Birkat Hamazon, we say during Sukkot, may God restore David's fallen sukkah. They don't mean literally a sukkah. It means that war is what crushed David's dream of building the permanent Beit HaMikdash. He didn't build it, remember? Solomon built it, his son. He couldn't, and it says straight out, because he had to fight wars. And when you fight wars, it's very hard to build a beautiful temple, because you have to fight a war. When the wars end, we can build that symbolic temple. They can build their symbolic mosques, and we can dwell once again in peace and harmony. Let's imagine it. Let's see it come true. Let this be the Simchat Torah that leads us back to the book of Genesis, back to the beginning of the story, but this time with a much better ending. Chag Sameach, Shabbat Shalom.